Namaste, this is Henry. This morning I am with Mr. David Godman, who discovered Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi in 1974 and moved to Tiruvannamalai in 1976. Since then, he has written 12 books on the subject of Ramana Maharshi and consider Ramana Maharshi his main teacher. What is self-inquiry for you to begin with?
So the basic premise, according to Bhagavan, is that the individual I cannot exist unless it associates or identifies with something else. So you have this feeling or entity of I inside you, and he said it's a corrupted version of the true I, which is the self, and it's corrupted because it's always associating with something. I am a man, I am angry. You have a thought, you have a perception, and somehow the two get conflated together. There's never a pure I, there's always an I am this, I am feeling this, I am thinking this, I remember this. He said the way to get rid of this false I is to sever it from all the things it associates and identifies with. And he said the way to do that is not to put attention on the objects which the I is thinking, remembering, perceiving, but simply to be aware inside yourself of this basic fundamental I. He calls it the I thought. He said it's the basis of everything you know about yourself, everything you think about yourself, everything you do. There's this inner I. And he said if you become aware of it subjectively rather than as an object of your attention, and you constantly be vigilant in order to stop it associating with thoughts, ideas, then this I can't subsist or exist by itself. And once there are no longer any objects that it can latch onto, it has to subside, because it can't exist in isolation. Slowly it sinks back to the place of its origin, which is the self, and it disappears. He said any technique that puts attention on an object rather than on a subject takes you away from the self, and any technique which consists of inhering in this subjective awareness takes you back to the self. So he said this works and all the others don't, because you're always projecting your attention externally with the other techniques. With this one, you're attacking the fundamental common thread to all your experience and allowing it to dissolve by constant inner awareness of it. So now we get to what Bhagavan says. He said the way to do it is to, he said whenever you get a thought or an idea in your head, or you see something, you say, who is perceiving this? Who is thinking this? To which automatically the answer has to be I. I am perceiving this, I am thinking this. He said then ask the question, who am I? As a method of focusing on this inner subjective feeling of I. And basically that's the beginning and end of his advice. He said each time you become distracted, each time you become aware that you're no longer wholly absorbed in this inner feeling of I, go back to it again. Who is being distracted? Who is in this new train of thought? Who is now thinking about what he's having for dinner? I. Who am I? And you go back to this inner feeling of I again and again and again. And sooner or later, he says, it will subside and it will disappear. Now, what's complicated about that?
So it's a constant process. It should be a constant inquiry from when you get up to when you go to sleep.
He was asked about this by a man who had a lot of family responsibilities, and Bhagavan never encouraged people to give up on the duties that their destiny had given them. If you were married and had children and had a job, put your attention on them when you need to do it. But he told this man, at all times when your mind is not needed for these everyday activities, your duties, your responsibilities, put that mind back in the self. So what he's saying is don't waste any mental energy on anything other than the jobs that life has given you, your career job, your family responsibilities. Once you've done them, every spare minute, keep your awareness of this I. It's not a sitting practice for him. It's not something you do 5 till 7 every day. He said just keep constantly turning inside whenever your mind isn't required for something that's compulsory outside.
But was there a meditation process or technique that he recommended? A sitting, close your eyes, something like that?
In one place he said sitting with your eyes closed is for, I think, the merest of spiritual novices is what he said, but everybody I know finds it's easier to do it if you're sitting, not walking down the street while you're shopping, just to set aside particular times for it and do it as a formal practice. So although Bhagavan said that wasn't really what he was asking people to aim for, everybody I know who does it does find it helpful to have formal practice.
What is your descriptions of your process of vichara? How does this work for you? Did it change over the years? Was there a formal practice?
I came here, let's just for convenience start when I came here. Yeah. I came here, I absorbed all the information I could through the available ashram books, which I couldn't read in the West. And I used to go and sit in the old hall where Bhagavan sat for over 20 years and just sit in front of that couch, which is still there, and do the practice as I understood it from reading the books, from talking to people who were doing it. Over the first few months, I would talk to fellow practitioners, I would talk to old devotees who'd sat with Bhagavan, and very slowly my understanding solidified, if that's the right word. I got a very good sense of what the teachings were, I got a very good sense of what they were not, and learned how to stick to what Bhagavan said and not to be deflected by other people's interpretations or other people's concepts. So I think that was a process that took several months, and then I spent most of the first 18 months or so just sitting almost all day in the old hall, just determined I'm going to sit here and do this properly.
Sitting doing what? Just asking, who am I?
Holding on to this inner sense of I, and every time I found my attention somewhere else, I would say, no, not there, back to the I, just again and again and again.